Hi there. Great you could join us today because we're developing our theme in John's Gospel, and on this particular occasion we're dealing with the whole area of the story of Palm Sunday. But believe it or not, we're doing it a wee bit early as well, but that's okay because we've got a lot to learn from it. And it comes through a question I need to ask you: how flexible are we? Now, I'm not talking about if you can touch your toes, and I'm not going to try, or if you do Pilates. I have tried once or twice, but if things change in terms of circumstance, how good are you at adjusting? Do we just stay fixed on one way, or do we realise that there is another way? It appears that those, that being the crowd in Jesus' story, are around Jesus in a way where they've got some fixed ideas and they're not very flexible. How did Jesus manage that? Imagine the momentum of the story where we have Palm Sunday story, where everyone's moving towards Jerusalem and there's all these palm tree leaves and many people shouting. It's almost like a relentless tsunami surging forward. It's like a runaway freight train with no brakes. Opinions are mounting. Things are spreading with regards to gossip. It's all moving in one direction. And as I said in this story, it's towards Jerusalem, to the gates. It's like the crowd were ushering in a new regime. Now, we join this story in John just after hearing Jesus call out Lazarus from the grave. That news would spread. So a large crowd's gathering, and not just gathering because of that, but because of the Passover. So it's busy, waving branches, shouting some words from scriptures that were ushering in this new king. They were saying, Hosanna. That was really at a time when it was used, asking for the king to help them. And on the lips of these people, it would sound quite different. It would say, save us now. They wanted a king to save them from their enemies. We might sing Hosanna on a Palm Sunday with a totally different meaning, but they were greeting Jesus as a revolutionary king. That would cause some really deep concern amongst the authorities. You know, religious leaders may have hated the Romans, but they didn't want to upset the arrangements they had in place. And these Romans wouldn't like it either. You see, at the passage that we were dealing with, it says there from the particular religious leaders saying, see, this is getting us nowhere. Look how the whole world has gone after him. Romans would be sensitive to this kind of uprising, and they would soon deal with this by the sword and end up with an unsavoury, bloody end. They thought they were greeting Jesus as their idea of a Messiah, something that would unsettle and unseat these Romans. They expected Jesus to save Israel, to become an important nation. Palm Sunday was a power play. There was no communication here, that was just pure assumption. This is our man, we'll put him on the throne. They were manipulating the crowds towards that end. Maybe we recall times when we have expectations, we have intentions placed on us, manipulated. Maybe it's been through religion or local politics. We're squeezed into a corner. No one's prepared to listen. No communication. Plenty of assumption. This is the challenge in life, isn't it? When circumstances can soon be out of our control and the knock-on effect can sweep us up and it overruns other people's opinions. What can we do in the face of that? Well, let's look at Jesus. Jesus did not enter Jerusalem like a powerful leader. He put a spanner in the works. His power play was to sit on a donkey and to tell others, you're not manipulating me. A donkey was bought and used by poorer people. It wasn't the stuff of kings and emperors where they would ride in victory on the back of a almighty white horse. Not Jesus. Jesus came to the people humbly, not proudly. He was intentional about what was going on in his mind, and he wanted to shape and shift the direction even in the face of the crowd. Maybe we need to go into life events, or even this week, and shape it more intentionally. Not with an attitude like that of the crowd that was selfish and manipulative, but with the attitude that Jesus had of being humble. He let his actions and choices speak at that point. I noticed that he spoke later, but during all that furore, he just let his actions do the talking. Because the circumstances were bigger than all of them. Maybe the only option left, maybe in a situation, is to be silent. When others around us may be ranting, or maybe we should walk away from a heated conversation. Or we just get up and boil the kettle when everyone else is gossiping because we don't want to be part of it. Let our actions do the talking, but be intentional. We may not be in control of those things around us, but we can be in control of ourselves in the midst of it all. Maybe we need to stand up to stand out. And as a follower of Jesus, we need to have our wits about us and stay sharp to what's happening around us and not get caught up in it all. We can see how that can easily be done. With a celebration, crowds soon get out of hand. Whatever the football team. But it's not an either-or situation here. There's an opportunity to learn. The story is also written in retrospect. In other words, the disciples are looking back at this time about what happened with Jesus, and they begin to see their experiences differently. They may have been caught up by the euphoria of the crowd. It's easy done, but people can change. And that's what happened for the disciples in this story. The turning point was going to happen soon. The resurrection of Jesus. It was a game changer in their outlook. They learnt to look at things differently. And that can be the same for us. When we wake up and know Jesus as part of our lives, he provides a filter, a lens in which to look at our world. We have a clue in our story when John just dips into the message from one of the Old Testament prophets, Zechariah. John maybe not had thought about it at the time, but later on, it's clicked for him. Jesus was more than a king of Israel. In fact, he's the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. The scale of what John was involved with had got so much bigger than maybe what he thought at the time. It was colossal what he was discovering. Sometimes we think we know it all at the time, and then something happens and we have a wake-up call. We begin to understand our story in the past, and it begins to shape our present and even direct where our future goes. It can be very different. We realise our ideas of life and dreams may be short-sighted and blinkered. Sometimes it takes, maybe in our lives, an accident, a death, a change in relationship, a change for the better. But even more so when Jesus is part of our life. He enables us to have a spiritual vision that helps us to change our outlook and go in a different way. We adapt, we change, we have a renewed perspective. The remarkable thing in this story is that just because it happened and the crowd thought they had their way, we realise now it was not the only way to look at it. When we realise that we can change the way we look at our past. And it's possible from our past to begin to look at our present differently as a result. The circumstances may be the same of what's happened to us, there's no changing that, but the reasons in our minds of how we look at the past could well change. And we see then where we're living now differently. And that's what happened to the disciples because of Jesus. They look back on their life with Jesus with their eyes wide open. So maybe in our faith we can learn to learn from our past, but also face up to our past and have our eyes wide open, taking in so much more than we did before, because God is working in our life and He's giving us hope in our lives now where we think circumstances are a barrier. When we're in a situation, you may not see things at that particular given time. But as we've learnt from John and the way he's looked back, well, maybe we can learn a thing or two from him. That as a follower of Jesus, Jesus is a life changer. He changes the way we look at the past. He changes the way we look at life now. And He changes our path to face a new future. Maybe there's some takeaways we can deal with regards to this. Think of a time in the past where you thought that's the only way to look at it. But now look at it with fresh eyes and realise that God was at work. Why don't we, for Elle, listen to another person's story and help them to see their past differently and empower them for the present? And then in a caring way for the letter C, maybe we need to encourage that individual to realise that their life is not defined by the past, but it is defined by the way Jesus looks at our past, empowers us for the present, and gives us hope for the future. That would be a caring thing to offer for an individual who may be trapped in their past. Thanks for joining us. You take care, and it's great you've been part of our worship today.